Somewhere in southern Arizona, there are over 3,000 aircraft just sitting in the desert, parked in rows, engines sealed, no passengers, no crew, no destination. This is the largest aircraft boneyard on the planet, and it holds some of the most famous planes ever built. But these planes didn't crash. They didn't break down. Every single one of them flew perfectly on its last day. A commercial airliner is one of the most complex machines humans have ever built. A single Boeing 747 contains over 6 million individual parts. It costs $400 million new. And it's engineered to fly for roughly 25 to 30 years, about 75,000 takeoff and landing cycles before the airframe hits its structural limit. When a plane approaches that threshold, the math changes fast. Inspections become more frequent. Parts become harder to source. Fuel burn creeps up as newer, lighter jets take over routes. At some point, keeping the aircraft flying costs more than the revenue it generates. So the airline pulls it from service. The crew walks off. Passengers move to newer jets. And the old plane just sits on an apron somewhere, waiting. What happens next depends on who owns it, what shape it's in, and sometimes just timing. And the first stop is somewhere most people have never heard of. The 309th Aerospace Maintenance and Regeneration Group at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson is known simply as the Boneyard. 2,600 acres, over 3,100 aircraft, an estimated $35 billion worth of machinery sitting in the open desert. The location isn't accidental. The Sonoran Desert has almost zero humidity and hard alkaline soil that can support aircraft weight without concrete paving. Planes don't rust here. They don't sink. They just wait. When a military aircraft arrives, a preservation crew goes to work immediately. Engines are fogged with protective oil and sealed in a vinyl spray called spray lat. Fuel lines are drained. Control surfaces are locked in position. The aircraft is cataloged, tagged, and assigned a storage code that tells you exactly what it's here for. Some are in temporary storage between deployments or awaiting upgrades. Others are here permanently. There are B-52 bombers here that first flew in the 1950s. F-14 Tomcats, the same jets from Top Gun, were sent here and deliberately cut into pieces, specifically to prevent their parts from reaching Iran through the black market. Not every plane leaves the same way it arrived. For commercial aircraft, there's no boneyard. But the choices are just as final. When an airline retires a jet, it typically goes one of three ways. The most valuable components, engines, avionics, landing gear assemblies, are often worth more individually than the whole aircraft. A single CFM56 engine can fetch $3 to $4 million on the used parts market. Dismantling companies buy entire retired airframes just to strip and resell these components to other carriers still flying the same models. The fuselage gets hollowed out. Seats, galleys, overhead bins all sold individually. What's left is an aluminum shell. Companies like Air Salvage International in the UK process hundreds of jets a year. Once stripped, the airframe is cut apart and fed through industrial shredders. A single retired 747 yields roughly 45 tons of recyclable aluminum metal that re-enters manufacturing supply chains as something else entirely. There's a 727 in Costa Rica that became a luxury hotel suite, cantilevered over a jungle hillside. A 737 in Sweden, converted into a hostel. Cockpits sold to flight simulator companies. Nose sections mounted outside aviation museums where kids press their faces against the glass. Some planes end up somewhere no one expected when they rolled off the assembly line. Mojave Air and spaceport in California is a different kind of resting place. Drier air, similar logic. On any given day, you'll find hundreds of commercial jets parked in the desert, waiting for someone to decide their fate. When the pandemic hit in 2020, Mojave filled up fast. Airlines grounded fleets overnight. Some of those aircraft never came back. The AI-380, the largest passenger aircraft ever built, had already been struggling before COVID. Airports had spent billions widening gates and reinforcing runways for it. After the pandemic, the economics collapsed. Orders were canceled. Airbus ended production. Now A380s are being cut apart in the desert. The biggest planes ever built, retired before most of them hit 15 years old. The boneyard doesn't lie about what the industry values. There's something disorienting about standing next to a plane that carried 400 people across oceans. Now sitting silent in the desert, with its engines sealed and its tires flat. But these machines don't go quietly. They go through meticulous documentation, careful disassembly, precise component recovery. Even at the end, they're treated like the engineering achievements they are. And the useful parts of them keep flying in other jets, on other routes, carrying other passengers, who have no idea the engine outside their window once belonged to something else. The boneyard is the end, but it's rarely the finish line. If this got you thinking, the story of how airlines decide which aircraft to buy and the economics that drive those decisions goes even deeper. That video is right here. Subscribe if you want more of this. We cover the systems most people don't think to look at.